going to continue with our email program, and the subject we'll begin with is the tone of voice. Now, you may say that no one's hearing me, so why do I need to think about my tone? I'm not speaking to anyone. Well, in order to make you understand a little bit more about the tone of your voice, I'll start with a quote to make an important point that a lot of people really don't consider. This quote is by Napoleon Hill, who is one of the most foremost writers and authors on the art of being successful. He said that, remember, the tone of your voice often conveys more accurately what is in your mind rather than the words you are saying. So your words say certain things, but your tone of voice conveys, more importantly, what is in your mind. So this is something that you need to be able to understand when it comes to emails. Tone of voice is also very, very important. And people can begin to understand exactly what you're thinking just by the tone of your voice. But how does that relate to emails? When you have emails, you don't have tone of your voice. Those on the other side of the screen, they're not hearing you like someone's hearing you on a telephone. However, those people on the other side of the screen will read tone into your email based on how you write that email, based on how you format it and how you integrate all those words you put in the email. Also, depending on the choice of words you use as well. All of these things are going to convey a certain tone, a certain feeling about your message, and that reflects upon you. So tone of voice is a very real thing in written communication. You don't have to be orally communicating to be able to understand tone of voice. So I want you to think about this point and think about it very, very carefully. You do need to be concerned with it. You do need to ensure that the tone of your voice is reflected very, very well and positively in an email. Tone is an issue with each and every single email you send, no matter how short it is, no matter how long it is. Even short emails can end you up in trouble if you're not careful with the way you use those final two words that you leave the message with. So tone of voice and the way you write your emails has a very powerful impact. Every word you choose to bold and put in bold type, every word you omit or include has an impact, and it has a tone about it. How people choose to word requests or inquiries speak volumes as to what their true intent is. So nobody needs to actually hear this. They can see it. They can see from your writing and the words and the way you word a request or inquiry that will let the receiver or the reader understand the tone of the message. Intent is relayed in tone. Whether someone intends to do something as well, you can tell from the words that they use, the choice of words, whether someone has real intention as well. So you can tell a lot. You can tell courtesy, you can tell professionalism, you can tell tone from these two things, and you can also tell intent, what the real intention is, purely by choice of words and the tone that comes through in that email. These things are intertwined. There's no doubt about it. If you are not really sure of your tone And sometimes people are not. They just tap away and they're quite oblivious. They're quite unsure as to the kind of tone that is going into their email. If you are not sure of that, or if you tend to be emotional or frustrated as you type emails, then you must certainly do this thing. You must step away from the computer and you must take a very deep breath. You need to take yourself away so you have time to think about what you are trying to say and think about the tone that's going to come out in your email. Then once you return, had time to collect your thoughts, then read your email out loud. Don't read it silently. Read it aloud and see if you would like someone else to speak to you in the same way. Sometimes we do let our emotions run away with us. This is a fact. Sometimes it's difficult not to get angry or frustrated with the person who sent an email. We do like to respond and be firm in our responses. However, if you're not sure how you're sounding or you don't want to destroy your relationship, get up and move away. Take yourself away. Then come back. Reread it. And then you'll see whether you should actually send that or change it. A point to note here is, just because you are upset doesn't mean that you can send rude emails to those there who are actually probably trying to help you or who are trying to request assistance from you. So don't send rude emails. Never ever be rude in an email. It is not the way to go. It will come back and backfire on you definitely in the future. And you will regret having sent that rude email. So the tone in your email many times is the difference between typing an extra few words of thank you or just simply not over punctuating or formatting. Sometimes you might feel that people put in a lot of exclamation marks at the end of something. Now, if you just simply take those exclamation marks out, then the tone of the email can become quite different. So just think about that point. Look at ways, if you've written in a very upset way or an angry way, a reply, go back when you look at your reply, take out the punctuation marks. Take out the bolding or the underlining or the caps you might have used. And then you might find that your whole email takes on a different tone. It is amazing how tone is so sensitive to these things. That's why we do make mistakes and quickly send off things without rereading. So we do need to be very aware of our emotions when we're trying to convey a very professional tone. People are sensitive, remember. The receiver is going to quickly understand the tone of your voice, just like you do when you receive an email. You can detect tone in that email. So a point here to follow, a general rule is, when you're not sure of tone, whether you're sending the right tone or even when you're reading an email, the tone, you're not quite sure of it, get up. Walk away. Take a break from that computer and take some deep breaths. This will help you on your return to look a little bit more with clarity at how you should respond or how you should interpret. Sometimes we think that because we're dealing online, that we can be a little bit bold. We're not actually face to face with the person. So therefore we can be a little bit rude or be a little bit demanding or accusing. You wouldn't do that if you were face to face with that person, would you? You'd think more carefully about your words. So be careful to remember that email, as the communication tool that it is meant to be, is not a tool to flex your ego or flex your type of personality that you just want to lash out at people. It's not meant to be that kind of tool. Communication is very important in being professional. So use this email tool as a very highly respected communication tool. So don't just use it to play along with your ego and your desire to lash out in anger. That is not professional. Every time you might go down that road and do that, you are only causing damage to yourself. It all comes back to you. It all reflects back on you, and it is there forever. You can't delete that email that you sent. It's gone. Your tone is there. It has gone. You can't go to the post office and ask and look for that letter and put it back. It has gone with email. It's instant. In a second it's gone. And therefore so has your reputation and your image. So this is not a good thing. Do remember very, very much so about the tone of your voice and how that can have a positive impact or it can have a very devastating negative impact. Next up, we're going to look at respecting email addresses. Remember, just as you wouldn't call someone at work every hour with the latest gossips or the latest jokes you've heard, nor should you forward on silly jokes or political opinions or anything that you would forward to all of your friends. You would have to think very carefully about this. So whether your email is to a friend at another business or a co-worker or in the next cubicle next to you, you have to respect emailing and emailing addresses. So this type of behavior, whether it's on company time or wherever, is not really professional behavior. And you don't really respect your employer for their resources, do you, if you behave this way? So you must respect the fact that you're sending from your company. It's very, very important. People will look at where this has come from and they begin to judge you if the content is not really a business-like content. So just remember that point. This is pretty much common sense, isn't it? As you should understand, companies monitor outgoing emails and ingoing emails, and they monitor to where they go. And so, therefore, copies can be sent as well. If they're not monitored, they are certainly being copied. They're kept on servers, and they can be produced at later dates. They can be pulled up and be shown as a record of all the different places that you sent emails to. So be mindful of the fact that you're using the email address of your company to send information or jokes or things that are not really relevant to other people. And this can all be monitored. Don't assume for 1 minute that the person on the other side, who perhaps is busy with their responsibilities, they actually may not appreciate you forwarding these things and landing in their business email box as well. They perhaps might get upset that they're receiving in their business email box all this ridiculous stuff coming from you, because at their end as well, they are being monitored. So you do have to tread very carefully. They also, the other person, is getting paid to do a job at their company email address, and so therefore they could get into trouble if you do this to them. I do have colleagues, and I think you need to set this up with your friends and your co-workers. If they have a secondary email address to send things to, then do that. But first up, don't be sending stuff that's not relevant anyway to them, because it reflects on you. And your company is paying for all of this service. There must be hundreds and hundreds, I'm sure, of emails that are going from a company address to friends every day as we speak. And this is really not professional behavior. It's not good business etiquette. So there's a rule to follow here. If you want to send stuff out, then you do it in your private time, from your private email address to your friends at their private email address. That's all there is to it. Many companies now have these policies in place, and they write this into contracts, they write this into job descriptions to ensure that this regulation is followed. Because company time is very important, and more so, the company's image is very important as well. So that is something you need to be very mindful of. There's a saying that says, if you wouldn't put it on your business letterhead, then don't do it in an email. So this is something to remember. Your business time, your business email address is something you have to regard very highly. If you wouldn't print something out and send it in a company envelope, then don't forward it either. It's very, very simple. Sometimes we get a bit lazy with email, don't we? And we get a bit too casual. Do remember, when you're there in your office, there's no place for being casual about the information you send to anybody else or the way you send it. You're being paid to be professional, and that is simply that. Our next point in good protocol when we're talking about emailing is business email bullies. I'd just like to give you an example here of how this looks. Let's evaluate this message. The person that sends this states that it means nothing to have the question, exclamation marks and capital letters in his email, but he continues to do it. He says, John, please send the updated spreadsheets for this project. Question mark. Send this document now. Exclamation mark, so forth. Here he's saying he hasn't really got the information for the project, so send it now. This really is not a way to project your behavior or be professional. This really does come down to being a little bit confusing and also a little bit over the top, a little bit excessive. The first sentence, for example, doesn't even warrant one question mark, let alone multiple question marks. It's just ridiculous. It doesn't even sound like a sentence. It's not a sentence at all. He's just being a bit of a bully, we say, and being excessive in demanding something from you. If having all of these question marks means nothing, or all of these exclamation marks that you have seen mean nothing, then why is he communicating this way? Why is he doing this? The way he's doing this reflects his tone, pure and simple. And his tone is that he is just making a very strong demand, an excessive demand on you. He thinks he's going to get a good response. He thinks he's acting proactively and being a good manager or whatever. He thinks he's going to get the desired response. And he is just being a bully, we say. You can see also that his formatting is in bold type, and very large type at that. So when you take a look at this particular message, what are you seeing? You're seeing a bully. And there are many people who refuse to realize the power of their written words. And they refuse to understand the corresponding punctuation and the result and the impact that all of that can have in the way they use them. This certainly doesn't mean that the needs of that writer aren't there. They do need to know where the material is, and they do need to have it sent now. However, the email writer is really showing their lack of professionalism, their lack of how to reflect themselves, and they are being a little bit too confrontational. They may not speak or behave this way if you were speaking to them face to face. They have taken the privilege of email and abused that privilege. They have felt safe behind the screen, and they're not feeling your impact directly. They're hiding behind the screen, so to speak. By typing with all of these exclamation marks or all of these question marks, this email writer is simply typing to you with an overly aggressive and superior tone. He is very condescending towards you. He comes off not very professional at all. If that's what he means, then okay, you understand that's what he means. But he doesn't need to say it the way he said it or write it the way he has written it. Basic punctuation would have been okay. One of the very important skills, as I have said, in any successful business career is to be able to communicate and to be a professional while you communicate, to show courtesy and to be clear. And if you begin to escalate or accentuate simple punctuation or use punctuation that's not really needed, and it seems to be yelling at you or screaming out at someone, then it is the sign of a very amateur bully. Simply, this is what it is. So this kind of email, this kind of a way of sending a message really speaks volumes when it comes to the tone. So now, please begin to understand that tone is very important. Having just received this example, you can see what tone is all about and how it does not reflect professionalism if your writing is exactly as we have seen in this example. Makes sense to me to tone down excessive use of punctuation and have very professional tone in your email. Sometimes in our emails we have informality and we have mistakes in judgment. How we handle email errors in judgment and oversights once we discover they have been made is what separates the professionals from the rest of us. So with your business emails, the biggest mistake is simply not paying attention to what you are doing. Sometimes we adopt a very casual viewpoint of email, and therefore we don't give it the real attention that it deserves and the real attention it requires to be used properly. So while we can understand that a point of view with personal emails between family and friends is okay, there is nothing informal about business email communications. Between friends, between families, informality is okay. But in business communications, informality is not a path you should follow. This can lead you down the wrong way in terms of your tone and building those important relationships that you want to build with your partners. Informal approaches such as simply hitting reply to all is really not the best way to reply because it could embarrass other people. And it could be that some of those other people really don't warrant having a reply sent to them. So to add business contacts to your emails that those business contacts really didn't ask you to, or to even forward all your contacts with their email addresses exposed to other people in the to line or in the blind CC line field is sometimes a very big mistake. It's a business mistake in email etiquette that can be too casual and it can have the wrong impact. These are mistakes in judgment. You didn't think about it. Simply, that's the situation. You didn't think carefully enough. And so doing these things can cause business contacts to become very unhappy. You do have to humbly apologize when this does happen and learn from this experience. But unfortunately, when this has happened, sometimes it reflects the opposite. All too often, senders think that they might have the right to do what they want. And when free speech is a thing that we are all aware of, sometimes in online communication there are no rules. People think that they have carte blanche. People think they can do anything with anything that comes in. This is wrong. Part of using technology and email properly is taking the time to think about how your actions can affect the other side, as well as how you can get the best possible perception from them. This is where it's important to note this particular thing. The smarter you are, the more you have to learn. You are always continually learning how to be better at what you're doing, and particularly when it's handling email. You do need to have regard for the other side. You do need to think about them and not make mistakes of judgment. These can burn your fingers. These can break or make your business contacts. So if you send comments that you send inadvertently to the wrong person that are improper or rude or just unacceptable, you do need to apologize. And not by email. This means that you have to actually get up and call them on the telephone perhaps, or you do need to go around to where they are if you've sent it internally, and go and see that person and apologize. So the best rule here is to try not to let it happen in the first place. Don't make misjudgments with sending emails. Don't automatically reply to all. Think about the people who are involved in that email. If a contact asks to be removed from your list that they didn't ask to be on in the first place, then you have to remove it promptly. You must comply with what they request. Do it kindly, do it professionally, and respect their request, and at the same time apologize for any inconvenience. Only this kind of approach is going to try to rectify that relationship and save that relationship. This can also happen if you have websites, and on those websites there's information that is old or that has changed. If you continue to have that information on the website, it could be that the person who that actually impacts might write to you and say, take it off the website. I am no longer one of your vendors. I am no longer involved. Please remove it. When that happens, you need to take action promptly. This is very, very important, and you need to be very professional in handling this. So, whenever you are sending to everyone you know in the to field, which exposes your contacts to strangers, you might have to just be very, very humble and say very, very sorry. There is no excuse to breach the privacy of others, and you need to let your contacts know you have now been aware of the situation and that it won't happen again. People take this very, very seriously, by the way. It's a very serious issue. The privacy issue is becoming more and more important in electronic business. So please do regard this very, very carefully. I touched on this in the beginning of our program in introducing email etiquette, and here I am explaining it in a lot more detail. What can you do? Act. Be apologetic and quickly remove things from your address book if the contact has asked you to do that. We really sometimes do make these misjudgments. Sometimes it comes down to the fact that our attitude may cause us to fail. It causes us to be sloppy at our jobs. Sometimes it causes us to have big problems even in our business life. So if you do make a mistake, don't sort of add to that issue by offering up all sorts of reasons or excuses as to why you weren't doing something. We mess up. Simply, that's it. We make mistakes. So don't blame your personality, don't blame your attitude, or don't say, I don't know why it happened. You really do have to own up to the fact that this was a mistake that you made and that you weren't paying attention. Don't blame technology. Don't blame technology for that. You actually made a mistake. So you have to bear in mind that this is the responsibility you take. This is the line that you take when you are explaining to a contact why indeed this happened and you made this oversight. Hopefully, you will learn from the experience, and when you offer your prompt apology, you offer it sincerely. And this is a true sign of character. Character is one of the main reasons that others will choose to do business with you or not. So even if mistakes do happen, you can salvage the situation by owning up to it, by apologizing and not blaming other things, blaming other people, but letting them know that it's an oversight you made and it won't happen again. Do become professional when you're trying to recover situations, when you're trying to make the best of a bad situation. We all make mistakes, remember, and hopefully you will learn from these mistakes as they happen, and that they won't happen again. In some ways, the recipient or your contact will appreciate you for the fact that you've been honest. And that is a very important thing to remember in professional communication. I'd like to now take you in some detail through unannounced business email attachments. An exceptionally important part of email etiquette. It's good to take a look at this in some detail. And to remember that when we are sending attachments, we really are concerned only about what we want to accomplish. We are thinking, I'll send this attachment to such and such. That's what they want. That's what I want to do for them. We're only really concerned with our perspective. And in this particular instance, the sender who sends their attachments just want the other person to have these. It may be that the person that they're sending them to really doesn't want to have them. So the problem here is that by doing this, you risk shutting down the other person's email box with large unannounced attachments. This might seem like a good idea to you in wanting to send this information on, but actually, in fact, it is not really a good idea. And the thing to remember here too is most photo files right out of the camera are very, very big in size. They are huge. And even Excel attachments and spreadsheets and PDF files can fill email inboxes to capacity in one fell swoop. It might be interesting for you to send these things along, as I have said. However, have you ever thought that when you add all of these things up, they may blow out completely the other person's inbox? So what happens next? All of the subsequent emails that you're sending bounce back and are undeliverable. There could have been something very, very important in there too that the recipient was expecting, but now they are bounced back and they're not received. All because you, the sender, you didn't take time to think about how your actions could affect others. Now, this is something very important in common courtesy in sending attachments. Has this ever happened to you, by the way? Have you ever been on the receiving end when attachments came in and you didn't request them? Just think for the moment how you may have felt. And if it did upset your ability for your inbox to receive things, what sort of things came up? What problems happened because of it? It really is becoming a very concerning issue, unannounced email attachments. So what really is the solution? The solutions could be these. It could be that all photo files should not be larger than 600 pixels in width, and learn how to resize or resample photos in your graphic program before you send them. So this is where you're starting to have common courtesy and you're starting to think of the other person, the recipient. So try to resize things. Don't just say, oh, I haven't got time, it looks good, they should be able to get it, and bang, send it off. Have regard for them. Resize photos before you send them. See how well you can do that. The solution to this problem? Access or Excel files can only be opened by those who have that particular software. So you should really confirm, even if the other side has those programs, before you send one of those files to them, because they may not be able to open it anyway. We have highlighted this point before in our introduction. So you really do need to take a long, hard look at this. These files can be problems. I myself have experienced this particular problem where I can't even open the file when it comes because I don't have the program to open it. The next solution, especially for business-related attachments, really only send them, as we have said, during business hours, when there's somebody there to monitor whether they can come in and also to clear them from the inbox. And have the courtesy to ask first when would be the best time to send them. So this is another solution. You can get on the telephone and ring and find out how best to solve this problem. So reduce the sizes of things dramatically. Also, certain types of files, well then, make sure the other person has the program before you even send it and create a problem. And then the next solution is ring to see if they can actually receive boxes during certain hours of the day. Work out which is the best time to send things. Let's take a look at an example. This past Sunday, a client sent over 16 megabytes of files to be integrated into their site on a Sunday. Luckily, the receiver logged on to check an eBay auction at the same time and cleared out his inbox, meaning that his inbox was totally clear and ready to be able to receive stuff. This client has been asked continually to please only send attachments during business hours and to advise when doing so. It appears, however, that the client was only interested in accomplishing his task than making the extra effort to honor the numerous requests by not sending such large files outside business hours. So the client really didn't think of the requests that were made by the other person to him. How this person's actions could have affected the receiver was a moot point. It says a lot about the client's inability to form long-term, respectful business relationships. All he wanted to do was think of himself and send stuff out. He ignored the previous requests of the recipient. So what do you do in partnerships? What do you do when you're dealing with customers? Do you think about them or do you ignore their requests? In this particular example, it is evident that the requests were ignored, and that's not really professional business. That's not behaving in a professional sense and building your relationships. So it's important that you remember the attachments and honoring requests as to how to send attachments is a very important part of emailing. Do yourself a favor and do those that you email a favor. Think before you attach. You look very, very savvy or very, very tech savvy when it comes to that, and your contacts, without a doubt, will appreciate the extra effort and courtesy that you're showing towards them. So there are 3 top email attachments considerations that you do need to make. And we'll just go through them as we sum up this section of our email etiquette. You may not realize it, many people do not realize it, that very important issues they need to consider before sending attachments via email are these 3 things. First up, the file size. Take time to determine the file size. You have to do a bit of work here. Anything over 500K or 500,000 bytes should be compressed or zipped up. It needs to really be sized down. And don't forget too that many multiple attachments add up very quickly. It may look like they're small and that they're not very big in size, but when you add them all up, they can be quite large and they can cause, as we know, considerable problems at the other end. It could be a shutdown in the other side server or filling the inbox, causing all bounce backs, etc. So the first focus point in sending attachments is looking at the file size. If sending a bunch of attachments, perhaps break them up into multiple emails with only 2 attachments to each email. This is also an effective way of being able to send a large amount of information by attachment. So quite often you can perhaps warn the person before that you've got a lot to send, and you'll send it in multiple emails. Maybe it will be 4 emails or 5 emails or whatever. So do let the other person know that this is the way that you're going to handle this situation. As I mentioned, photographs, they take up a lot of space. And, you do like to send photos in some situations. You might have to if you're working with a customer and you need to survey perhaps areas that you're going to be putting up booths, etc. for some particular promotion. So do remember that photographs take up a lot of space. And bring those down in size when you're trying to attach them. If you are not sure about how to do that, then learn how to do it. If you have a lot of work in this area to do, then ask someone to help you reduce the size of those files. That's quite simple. There is no excuse. You are sending these attachments, so it's up to you to make sure that the other person can receive them. And therefore, reducing file sizes is your responsibility. Next up, the second point with attachments is the attachment format. You really can follow quite safely a rule of sending your documents in PDF format. This means that their size is definitely reduced considerably. And also, the document doesn't break up. So, PDFs are not operating system or software system specific, and the reader is now installed on most computers, so it's a free download and people can generally open up PDF formatted files. This is a very common way of sending information and sending it safely as well. So usually this is a good rule to follow. PDF, even all the Word documents, you might have 20 Word documents about a particular subject. So PDF them down, they will go off much, much easier, and they will compress down quite a lot in the size file. They also look very good too at the other end. When you open a PDF, it does look smart, it does look professional and business-like. So those who do not have Word, and most people have Word though, but those who do not have Word or Excel software, just as an example, would not be able to open files, however, in PDF format. But these days, most people do have Word. And if you're not sure, the best rule to follow is just ask. Always ask. Ask what formats the other side prefers to receive files in, or what formats they actually can receive files in. If this is a customer you're dealing with, then it's a matter of your responsibility to make a list in your modus operandi, or the way you're going to operate communication with this customer. Make a list and have it publicized with your staff as to what kind of software, what kind of files that customer, particularly them, can receive, and what they prefer to receive files in. That way, you're going to have very smooth relations, and that way your customer is going to appreciate the fact that you've asked about this, and that you're considering them as the recipient. You're thinking about them. So here again, you are being much more professional, and you are certainly behaving in a correct way in order to communicate with your customer. Finally, point number 3 that we are coming to in sending attachments. And I have said this, and I want to make this very, very important that you focus on this point. Ask first. You know, it doesn't take much time to ask this. It doesn't take an hour out of your day. All it takes is a simple phone call, or even just a quick email to verify this in writing. Before sending any attachments, always ask when would be the best time to do so, and also what kind of attachments you can send. So when would be the best time? Then be sure to send at that pre-arranged time. This is, of course, if you're sending large files, large attachments. It could be that in the normal routine business day, there are some things that are quite routine and quite easy to send that cause no problem or concern. However, when sending large files, do follow this point number 3. It will really help you in your professional communication. Just like anything online, thinking about how your actions can affect those you communicate with will go a really long way for you to being perceived as somebody who's technically savvy, technically knowledgeable, and also people will get a feel that doing business with you and communicating with you is really something that they like to do. They will find that doing business with you is more of a pleasure than a real task. So what I'm saying in closing this particular session is that your professionalism comes out in every respect when you are able to follow some simple guidelines in the way that you communicate. What we have covered here in this particular segment are some very simple things, but there are some very, very important things as well. And I'll just recap them quickly before we finish this program. Your tone of voice is very important, as you have seen, and your tone speaks volumes. People can hear you from what you have written in an email. And also, don't forget to respect the address that you're using at the bottom of your email when you're at work. That is a business address, a company address. It's not your personal address. So respect that and be careful how you do use your business emails. Don't become a business bully, an email bully, sorry. Don't become that way. Don't use excessive punctuation, excessive wording, shouting out and screaming out at the reader. That's not the way to be professional in business. But there are bullies who exist, and we do see them every now and then. But don't be one of them. Next up, we do understand that we have misjudgments in the way, or we make misjudgments in the way we handle formality in emails. And when that happens, the main thing is to really say sorry about it, be sincere and correct the situation so you don't make those misjudgments again. We've also covered unannounced email attachments in this particular session. And I do hope that all of the points that we have raised and all of the knowledge that I've shared with you on these particular issues, you take away with you and you do apply them right from now on, because I do believe that you will probably have emails to answer or emails to write very much after this session. So do apply them and do use them, because they will definitely raise up the level of your professionalism in your email communication. Thank you very much for joining.